This video was brought to you by the rice cooker in your Lola's house that's probably older than you are. October is Filipino American History Month, as October 18, 1587 is the first recorded presence of Filipinos in the continental USA. And I had to look this one up because I hadn't actually known about any of this until my sister mentioned it out of the blue. And I had no idea what it actually meant. This video is actually a little personal project of mine talking about what it means to me to be Filipino American. I remember in kindergarten, my 5-year-old self thought, I wish I weren't Filipino, because no one has even heard of Filipinos or the Philippines. If I weren't Filipino myself, I'd probably know nothing about it. I never saw any Filipino on Disney Channel, Nick, or Cartoon Network. If it didn't show up in my cartoons, it must not be important. I still facepalm when thinking about that moment and my younger self's thought process. Mostly because I lived in an Asian hotspot with mostly Asian classmates, a handful of whom were Filipino as well, so I think I was just a little bit dumb. Around 6 years old, we moved to a school where they held a cultural festival every year to celebrate different cultures of the students and families. We were a part of the Filipino booth, and we were a part of the performances. We danced Itik Itik, which is a dance about ducks, I think. Malong Malong, which originated from Mindanao. The boys did Maglalatik, which we called the coconut dance, which was really fun to watch, as well as the famous Tinikling. It feels like we did Tinikling almost every single year since then, and the music still causes war flashbacks about getting my ankle slammed by giant pieces of bamboo. Food was also a way that Filipino culture was passed down to us. Things like sinigang, adobo, sisig, longganisa, halo-halo, taho, and all the other normal foods. But I also happen to be a snack person. Chips and snacks like V-Cut, Clover, Pillows, Fudgy Bars. And I agree with Domics that sweet corn really is awesome. My experience was that I was born in the US and was mostly raised here until I was 13. We were then moved to the Philippines, and I stayed there for most of my teen years. During this time, I learned that I was not Filipino enough to be viewed as Filipino, and I was not American enough to be viewed as American. Along with being separated from my family for long periods of time, many of the meaningful parts of Filipino culture were out of my reach, and I never learned them. I've been slowly learning more and more about the history and culture through YouTube videos and doing my own research. I've actually started creating for another video regarding my journey of learning Tagalog. Filipino American History Month is about celebrating the accomplishments and the legacy of Filipinos in the United States. And I think about other Filipino American creators, actors, and more recently the Olympians in the recent Paris Olympics, and their contributions. More and more Filipino representation has been showing up in mainstream media. And it warms my heart because that means there are probably other Filipinos behind it as well. These contributions would have made 5-year-old me no longer feel out of place when watching all of these other great people make a difference. Here are some of the Filipino Americans that I look up to and those who have made an impact on the community. Filipino Americans made lasting impacts during World War II, and something cool that I learned is that Filipinos actually had a very big impact on our labor movements. I might mispronounce this again, but his name is Larry Itliong. He was one of the leaders in the Delano Grape Strike of 1965, and the end result was better wages and working conditions for farmers. And of course, he partnered with Cesar Chavez to lead the formation of the United Farm Workers of America Union. I have a feeling that I'm gonna butcher this pronunciation, and I'm so sorry. Tani Cantil Sakuye. She's the first Filipino American and the second woman to serve as California's Chief Justice, and she played a very big role in reforming the bail system, decriminalizing minor traffic offenses, and improved civic education. And I also wanted to shine a light on Ryan Letada. He's the CEO of Next Day Better, and I suggest you check out some of their YouTube videos. They talk not just about the Filipino community in the US, but for other cultures as well. More recently, he's also just a Filipino who is pushing for the responsible use of AI. One of my favorites, Mia P. Manansala, is the author of Arsenic and Adobo and all the other awesome books in that series. Bobby Rubio is known as the writer and director of the Pixar short Float. Float is about the director's experience with his autistic son. I want to say that this topic was absolutely groundbreaking in the Filipino mental health community. Float was released in 2019. But in 2020, there were no available statistics on how many people in the Philippines have autism or how prevalent autism was in Filipinos. I found an article from 2023 saying that the CDC reports that 1 in every 100 Filipinos has autism spectrum disorder. But lol, for the life of me, I could not navigate the internet highway well enough to find where exactly the CDC said that. Just from my own personal experience and people that I know, there are Filipinos who struggle with being autistic or being caretakers for their children of any age with autism. In an interview, Bobby Rubio shares that he initially created Float, depicting a white father and his white son, saying, "I don't know if anyone wants to see a Filipino American character. I love that the final project showed Filipino American characters because it shows that This is us. This is who we are, and this is our experience. I believe that this little push could have made such a gigantic difference for other Filipino Americans who struggle or have struggled with these same exact obstacles. Asia Jackson. She started the Magandang Marinex movement. And as a kid who was constantly made to feel like I was uglier for having darker skin, this movement really spoke to me. She also has a lot of cool videos about intentional shopping and fashion tips in general to get your money's worth when shopping for clothes and luxury items. I would also like to add in Domics.
Hi, I'm editing right now. Yeah, I made a mistake, but I didn't feel like taking him out because
he does share some of his own experiences of being Filipino American in some of his videos, although he does live in Canada now. He was also just an inspiration to me as another Asian who loved to do art and whose parents would never allow me to do art. There are definitely a lot of Filipino Americans that have made major contributions to the community that I have missed. Many of them aren't exactly famous as leaders of movements or politicians. Just the most obvious one, almost 20% of nurses in California are Filipino, which of course mattered a lot during COVID. Feel free to mention any Filipino American in your life and share their stories in the comments. Thank you everyone for listening to me ramble on and on about some cool people. Bye bye!